Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paula Miller. I'm the Executive Director for the Pikes Peak Library District, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon for the inauguration of the 4th Pikes Peak Poet Laureate. It's actually my pleasure to welcome you on two levels. Number one, as the Director of the Library District and a librarian and a sometime writer. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the beautiful Carnegie Room and our historic Penrose Library, surrounded by books and the halls and shadows of poets and writers before us. So this is a very inspiring place. We have done every single inauguration, I think, right here in the Carnegie Room because of that. Secondly, it's my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon as Pikes Peak Library District was one of the founding partners of the Poet Laureate program. So in your program today, you have a little bit of information and background on how that all began. Back in 2008, 5 different presenting partners got together to begin this program. And I'd like to acknowledge them. So if you are affiliated with any of the 5 original presenting partners, could you please stand if you're affiliated in any way? Pikes Peak Library District, UCCS, oh, come on, stand, it's okay. Colorado College, Copper, thank you, and Poetry West. Thank you, great. So the program began in 2008, and the purpose or the mission of the Poet Laureate Project is to celebrate and inspire poetry in the Pikes Peak region. It's as simple as that, and we're so pleased that you're here today to do that with us. The Poet Laureate honor is designated for a 2-year term. So again, we have had 3 Poets Laureate to date, and I'd like for them to stand and be recognized. Aaron Anstett. Jim Chiletti. And Price Strobridge. And again, thank you for joining us to this 4th inaugural event. We're going to begin with a welcoming song, and Sabrina Forrest, if you could come up now. Sabrina is a friend of Janice Gould, and she's going to start us off with a little music.
What I'm going to sing is the Eagle song in the Lakota language. It's a very ancient song. It's not sung lightly, it's not sung often. I was taught the song by May Witchers of Pine Ridge. I was given permission to sing it in public by Chief Homer Whirlwind Soldier. I'm very proud to be Janice's friend.
Sabrina, that was a beautiful and inspirational way to start this program. Thanks so much. I'm going to bring forward someone now to make a few remarks whom I bet all of you already know. Anyway, Jan Martin is on City Council, but she is also a friend of the arts and humanities in this community. So you'll see her not just on the dais, but also out in the community at these kinds of events and programs frequently. She also is a small business owner and recently won the Athena Award for 2014. So I'd like to bring forward Jan Martin.
My goodness, it's such a pleasure to be here. I think I've made 3 of the 4 of these, but when I think of the Poet Laureate, I will always remember sitting around John Atkinson's kitchen table having the conversation about whether we thought this was even possible. And John, this program wouldn't even be here today if it hadn't been for you. I want you all to know also that the Poetry While You Wait books, I have made certain that they are in City Hall all over the place. So if you ever have to come and wait for one of your council members, you'll have a Poetry While You Wait book to use. It's hard for me to believe that Janice will be number 4 already. We've been so blessed with your predecessors between Aaron and Jim and Price. It's just been quite remarkable, and we welcome you, Janice, and look forward to you and whatever we can do to help you and support you as you spread poetry throughout the Pikes Peak region. Please feel free to let us know. Thanks, everyone, and welcome.
All right, and next we'd like to bring up Price Strobridge, our current, for a few minutes longer, Poet Laureate of the Pikes Peak region. Price is going to tell you a little bit about what it's been like to be Poet Laureate over the last couple of years and let you know what he's been up to.
I have mixed emotions. It's a delight to be here, and just in a few moments I get a new title over your Pikes Peak Poet Laureate Laureate. But it's been such a wonderful ride, you know. I wanted to just warn people that, like, sometimes you start dreaming, you know, and wishing. And be careful, you can get what you wish for, you know. And I found this in my wallet. I knew I had it, and I went through so many credit cards, and it got stuck. Anyway, there it was. This is my mission statement. This goes back to 2007, but it just says goal to write a essay or poem to lift consciousness from object reference to spirit reference, i.e. love. And that worked for me, and it's just been a trip of love, I would say, that I've experienced with this community outreach. It just, it's come from all directions, and it's taken me all directions. I mean, I've been all over the map, and let's see, I got some people going to give me a 2-minute warning. I've got 10 minutes, and it's going to be so funny. I asked so many people to do that, and before long, all these fingers are going to go up at once. But, well, just a short thing, you know, a few of the things I've done here. I left off a few, but it seems like it's between 75 and 80 blessings I had, and I just thought, well, how can I describe all this? You know, it's, well, I'm going to do it categorically, you know, but I want to start this with this ride, 2012 to 14. I thought of that James Taylor song, I've seen fire and I've seen rain, I've seen sunny days I thought would never end. And that's the way I came into this. You know, Whitman came in with Hallie's Comment and went out with Hallie's Comment. I came into this, and we were here at our first Sunday meeting. I think it was Lori Werble or someone came in and says, folks, if any of you are from Manitou, you know, there's a little fire up there. Don't worry about it. But if you thought you needed to leave early, do it. So we came in with Waldo, you know, and then we've been through flood and then more fire. And people have written that, and it's recorded in the new Poet Laureate book, the stories, you know, from Dick and Jane Morton, the cowboy poets, and others, and group poems that came out of that. So, okay, here's some of the things that happened. Oh, and then all these century celebrations. I mean, this is a year, marks a century from the Great War, World War I, the Ludlow Massacre. We learned about Carl Sandburg's connection to that. Oh, take the time to look at this display right out here and learn his connection and the proud young man, you know, and McGregor, and it's all written there. And keep your eyes open. Somewhere in Colorado or Chihuahua, you might find a leather pouch with short stories and poems in it. That won't mean much until you read that display out there. But we had World War I century, Ludlow. Then I kind of got spotlighted because of my connection to the gold miner, Winfield Scott Stratton. It's a century of sanctuary is what they celebrated. And then who knows the fourth century event? All right, I know somebody knows there. And we celebrated during this term that I enjoyed so much, a century of Lois. Yay! And she's going to be honored May, I believe, 8th or something by the Colorado Authors League in Denver. So, and she's right here. And so those are some of the things. Now, categorically, well, I tried to do this. I'm still haven't turned it in yet. It says, hi, John. That was to John. Sorry I've been so long in reconstructing a whirlwind 2-year adventure. These may not follow a timeline, more categorical. My main mission was to visit each library branch, and which I did, all 15. Then I hopped aboard the Bookmobile Lobby Stop Poetry in Motion program, performed for 16 assisted living homes, and we went on school outings way out to the prairie. On that, had a delightful time. And then, let's see, Frost might say, way leads on to way, and pretty soon I was scooting around the community in all directions. So here's some. Like about 50 different library events, you know, with the branch visits, so forth. 2 Jean Chavon Poetry Awards, the Bookmobile trip to Miami, Yoder Rush, interviews and voiceovers, and 2 cowboy poetry festivals, and the Out of the Ashes event that was filmed here in the garden, and other things, All City Voices, the Summer Penrose Reading, this Carl Sandburg celebration. Let's see, this, oh yes, right here in this room. I had the privilege of introducing J. Patrick Lewis, the United States Poet Laureate for Children. What a delightful afternoon that was. Some of the organizations, let's see, the Pillar Institute for Continued Learning, a workshop with Ava Heinrichsdorf, and then 2 prison readings with and workshops with Jim Chiletti, a Rocky Mountain Haiku Society event, 2 ARC film festivals. If you've never been to those at Stargazers, you just got to see them. 1 Citizens Project Award for Sharon Friedman with the Smoke Brush Story Project thing. I'm falling in love with that thing. The Here Poetry Group, let's see, Cottonwood Arts Center, the Story Project, Myron Stratton Home Centennial event out there on their campus. Let's see, Slam Team send-off to the Boston Nationals, Poetry West Chapbook award-winning ceremony, Black Forest Women's Club, Goodwill Industries Voyagers program, the Pikes Peak Neighbors just recently, and they're a delightful group. And the Colorado Springs City Auditorium Preservation Society, a celebration of that grand old dame, the city auditorium, you know. I still owe them a poem, but I got that title, that grand old dame. A lot of poetry out loud events in high schools and in KCME, KRCC, and then working with this has been a delight. And let me tell you about this. This came out of the imagination of our first inaugural poet, Aaron Anstett. And I'm looking, where am I supposed to look for my 2-minute warning? Is it close? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, but they just got so popular. It's 3 volumes, and ta-da! This one. This is from the archive department, you know, the library. Someone said this big original painting is called Out Where the West Begins, is in a bank downtown. I think they said U.S. Bank or one of those big banks right downtown. It's a delightful book. The Waldo Canyon poems. We've got people, engineers and aviators and educators and children and haikuists. Okay, how am I doing? I could whip a 3 minutes? Oh my goodness. All right, I might do something else. Let's see, I know. Well, all right. Well, this is beautiful. I heard this out loud, you know, and listened to Carl Sandburg, but this is the voice of Wallace Stevens, not ideas about the thing, but the thing itself. See, I was going to talk about this thing, this beautiful program that's taken deep roots in our community, this Poet Laureate Project. I was going to talk about it. This is all about it. But how can you name the thing itself? So here's what he said, you know, about that scrawny cry. It was a chorister whose C preceded the choir. It was a part of the colossal sun, surrounded by its coral rings, still far away. It was like a new knowledge of reality. That's heavy stuff, isn't it? David Mason, and then 2 minutes? 2 minutes. David Mason, the other day, had me a pocket in your poem. Yesterday, or I think Saturday, was National Poem in Your Pocket Day. You know, and he gave me that reading. I'm not going to say it. You got it. It is so poignant. You have to read it twice, like a haiku, because it's got aha stuff in it. So, but just to get back to ground zero here, then, my idea was to write something that would lift consciousness. So I got a philosophy for you, because pure haiku is not philosophizing, didacticizing, theologizing, politicizing. It's just so pure. So, but this is kind of a philosophy, so that's my waiver. And it is, you must be alone long enough to know you're not any less than all. And then here's my signature sign-off. It's as big as a haiku, 17 syllables, shaped like this. It's called Boomerang. And it flew its way to, somehow or another, capriciously, to China and was performed over there. But it's 17 syllables, average exhalation of a human breath, of a thing for itself. Does that look like library? Laureate? Love? Here's my sign-off. The love that soars out from you returns on the arms of the singing wind. Thank you so much. Oh, one more thing. These will be available. There's not all printed. They're going to be released later. Those who are here and have contributed, you can take 2 with you. And later on, and everybody's entitled to take 1. And as the printing proceeds to completion, then just check with the library or Sue Hammond at the library, and we'll figure out a way of getting these out to the public. We may even have a reading down there in the garden, a summer event, and have the readers who can make it come. So that's my story, and I'm glad to tell it. Thank you.
Price, thank you for your tenure as Poet Laureate. I hope you got some sense from him of not only how much there is in terms of going out in the community and actually promoting poetry and inspiring people, but how rewarding it is as well to the poet. I did not see David Mason walk in. There he is. All right. We'd like to bring up now our Colorado Poet Laureate, Master of Beautiful Language and Professor at CC, David Mason.
This is a really beautiful occasion, and I'm so delighted to be here. Sabrina, it was such a wonderful thing to hear that song. My wife and I were just in Australia, which is her native country, and I'm really struck by certain aspects of the way the nation takes in the lore of First Peoples there. We walked up to the doorway of her childhood school in Tasmania, and right on the door was a little plaque that said, "When you take your next step, remember the first people who walked on this land." And I've never seen anything like that in America. So I think it's quite wonderful that we acknowledge the first people here in this country. In fact, I was given a talk at UCCS last fall about the Ludlow anniversary, and off the top of my head I said something like, "Todos somos inmigrantes," you know, everybody here is an immigrant. Janice Gould politely emailed me the next day and said, "We're not all immigrants, buddy." Point taken. John Atkinson, all honor to you for doing this. I remember the early days when the conversation was just getting going, and who would have believed it would be such a lively, healthy institution in the community now. I'm thinking about how to honor my friend Janice Gould, just very briefly here. I want to read a poem of hers to show you some of the things I love about her writing. But one of the things I think about when I think about Janice is the twinkle in her eye and the astonishing strength of her character and the almost shocking quiet of her manner. Because you and I live in a world of noisy distraction, and we're not used to quiet. We're not used to people who are willing to sit back and let moments happen without somehow or another having to force something onto the moment. I've had Janice in my classroom at Colorado College and watched her teach, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. I've been seeing a lot of the poetry world lately, and one of the things I see in the poetry world, in some cases, is too much noise. Too many people who think that if you can't write well enough, well, maybe if you just shout loud enough, people will think your poem is significant. And I think that's a sad thing. And it's a detraction from this beautiful art that connects us to the body and to the world. I love Janice's quiet. I love the gentle way she moves in the world. I love the wisdom and artfulness of her voice. Because of her cultural background, perhaps, because she's a West Coast writer like me, a Westerner like me, I feel an affinity with Janice in terms of her connection to the natural world, a world that is bigger than us, but a world that we need to remember we belong to in intimate ways. How much time are we spending in aluminum fuselages? How much time are we spending looking like this when we could be looking like this at the world around us? How little time are we spending listening to birds, listening to the weather, listening to the animal life around us, noticing the texture and color and life of the earth we live on. Janice comes from a cultural background that was not so divorced from these influences, as a lot of us may feel these days. She has a beautiful way of reminding us of our connectedness to the world, as well as to society and to each other. My wife and I have a friend who edits a wonderful magazine called Lavender Review that has published some of Janice's work. And just this morning, we went back and found one of Janice's poems there. And I hope it's okay if I read this, The Gazella of Bamboo and Plum Blossoms. We were living in a woodcut by Hiroshige of weathered houses with blue tile roofs, where behind a bamboo gate we found azaleas, tea roses, and jasmine, delicate and spicy amid stone Buddhas, placid with their inward gazing. On the bay, a few small boats tilted among whitecaps, sails open in the fulsome wind. Across the water, the volcano gleamed, mantled with spruce and incense cedar. There is more than one path to the top of the mountain, you remarked, solemn and wistful, while a flock of blackbirds alighted in the scraggly pines. The ocean lapped against the long stretch of pebbled beaches, mile after mile, and we knew the piping whales were rolling, diving on their great migrations, waving fins at gawking tourists who huddled on cliffs among parsnips and thistles. While here, on the steep, winding streets of our city, plum trees blossomed, pink and passionate, with crooked boughs that smell like imported baskets, like dyed cloth and paper, like damp gardens. Far to the west, mist thickened, clouds churned up, rain came whistling over the water and poured down upon us, pushed us into the next panel. Stumbling, sullen, bent, bedraggled, I caught at my blowing coat and looked to find you. Alas, you had fallen in with the rabble. Over the arched bridge you disappeared, jostled but happy at the foot of the mountain, dancing in a procession of drums and gongs. It's beautiful writing, and that's what I find in all of Janice's poems. They're just exquisitely made things. She has a beautiful ear and a passionate sense of our life amongst each other and our life in the world. And Janice, I've only got a few months left in my gig, but I hope you and I talk a lot about this business of laureateship and learn from each other. I expect to be learning from you for years to come. Congratulations, my dear friend, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, David. We're going to move into our formal inauguration ceremony now, and I'd like to bring up our first Pikes Peak Poet Laureate, Erin Anstett. Erin is also the chair of the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate Steering Committee and Selection Committee. And I just heard earlier today he has a book coming out soon.
Thank you, Paula. So I am here, I have the great honor to introduce our next Poet Laureate. But before I do that, I have a few other things to do. I want to formally and publicly again thank Price Strobridge for his outstanding tenure from 2012 to 2014. Yes, indeed. I want to thank him for his joy and his energy, which we saw in full display here, for his verbal exuberance as poet and raconteur, and for the pleasure he brings everywhere he goes. As Price noted, he has traveled throughout our region, spreading the delight that he finds in words and touching many lives. Price's term as Poet Laureate has been a gift, and Sue Hammond of the Pikes Peak Library District, more than anyone I know associated with the project, has helped deliver that gift. The words dedicated and diligent are insufficient to describe the time and energy that Sue has spent in helping to make Price's laureateship the success that it has been. I'd like to have a round of applause for Sue. So this beautiful piece of artwork here was made by Price and his wife, Mickey, whom many of you may know as an artist. This is a leaf here, which I understand, I have it on good authority, came from Emily Dickinson's family house in Amherst, Massachusetts, when Price and Mickey traveled there a few years back. Right here is a Price Strobridge original poem about Emily Dickinson. Down here are some signatures from folks involved in the project. And this is a very small token of visual and verbal art that we want to present to Sue Hammond for all that she has done. If Sue would come up here, please. Now, if you have a moment, and you do, I'd like you to take a look at the program here. On the very back of it, and I pointed this out 2 years ago when Price was inaugurated, on the very back of this program is a long list, microscopic fonts, but a long list of donors to the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate project. Now, what I would like to suggest that you do is, when you get a chance, go online to the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate site, Google it, go to the library site, find the Contribute tab. Select that, and then contribute something. And a couple things will happen. You will know that you have given to a wonderful project, a cultural project within our community. You'll get your name on the back of one of these programs in the future. And as I pointed out a couple years ago, the donation page has a drop-down where you can select your own salutation. So I have recontributed just a couple weeks ago, and now I am Chef Anstett. Didn't have to go to culinary school. You can make yourself a brigadier general, anything like that. So I suggest that you please do that. If you'll turn to the center of your program, this very small font right here, there's the mission statement of the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate Project, which reads in part, "The mission of the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate Project is to inspire and celebrate poets and poetry in the community. The project's goal is to designate the best of our region's poets as Poet Laureate and to support related programming that connects poets and poets with our community in ways that are personal and meaningful." On behalf of the selection committee, I submit that we have designated as Pikes Peak Poet Laureate not only among the best of our region's poets, not just among the best of our state's poets, but among the best poets in our country. Janice Gould. You look embarrassed, Janice. You're going to keep that pose for a little bit, because I'm going to say a few things. We are very fortunate to have Janice in the community, and extremely fortunate that she will serve as our next Poet Laureate. She is a serious, accomplished poet who writes powerfully and movingly in many modes. Her work is by turns lyric, narrative, formal, and not. Her most recent collection begins with a sestina and includes, besides prose poems and free verse, a pantoum, a villanelle, and 2 sonnet sequences. That collection, Doubters and Dreamers from the University of Arizona Press, was a finalist for the Colorado Book Award and the Milton Kessler Book Award. Her earlier collections are Earthquake Weather, also from the University of Arizona Press, and Beneath My Heart from the groundbreaking press Firebrand Books, which also published such essential writers as Audre Lorde, Pat Parker, and Dorothy Allison. Janice has also published a chapbook, Alphabet, with Mayday Press. Her work has been included in more journals and anthologies than I can list, and has been translated into several languages, written about critically for scholarly collections published by the University of Minnesota Press and Utah State University Press. In 2011, her work was the subject of a panel at the annual meeting of the American Studies Association. An associate professor in women's and ethnic studies at UCCS, where she developed and directs the concentration in Native American studies, From 2002 to 2005, she served as the Hallie Ford Chair in Creative Writing at Willamette University. I know here we say Willamette, but out in Oregon, and there they say Oregon, not Oregon. But anyway, Dr. Gould's awards and recognition include serving as a native writer in residence at the School for Advanced Research in Santa Fe, receiving a Ford Dissertation Fellowship, an Astria Foundation Award for Poetry, a Ruth Burt Fellowship, and a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship. Locally, in 2011, she received the Literary Excellence Award in Poetry from the Pikes Peak Arts Council. I emailed Janice and asked her if there was anything that I could not learn from her CV or the biographies in her books that she would like me to say, and she responded, and I quote, "It'd be nice if you mentioned that I just tested for my first Q in Aikido, a Japanese martial art. And forgive me if I mispronounced the name. I studied with Ryan Gatch, sensei at Aikido Koshin Shuri." So, mighty Janice. How did you do, by the way? Excellent? Oh, okay. So I'm going to bring Janice up in a moment here, but I'd like to say just a few more words about her poems. They are peripatetic, moving through the world and life and lives by many means of transport, journeying from the personal to the political, from the particular to our shared common experience. They enact the magic of making a music out of the real. Hers are poems with stories to tell us, not always happy, but true. In her poem, Owl, she writes, "I try out my voice, send forth its husky syllable into night-stained streets and rain-washed boulevards and cities where the poor sleep, bunched up against the cold and doorways, their breath of tar and acids. Hers is an important, necessary voice. We are honored to have a poet of such quiet power to serve as the 2014-2016 Pikes Peak Poet Laureate. Please join me in welcoming Janice Gould." So we have some traditions. So I'm presenting Janice with the official plaque. There you go. That's yours.
Thank you.
There is also unofficially this book by Nellie Burgett Miller, which I received from Jim Chiletti just before I started my laureateship, and it's been passed on to Price and now you.
Thank you.
And finally, the Poet Laureate needs a Poet Laureate's pen.
Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you so much. I'm just so honored and so pleased to be the next Poet Laureate for this region. And I have a number of people to thank for that. I don't even know exactly where to begin, but I'd like to thank Aaron very much for encouraging me, and my partner, all my colleagues, my friends. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to just read a statement that I made up for this occasion, and then read a few poems. And so here we go. You all said such elegant things. I hope I brought this thing. Okay. So this is, I just want to talk a little bit about my vision for this. And I'm not a great extemporaneous speaker, so that's why I write things down. So being a poet laureate is an honorary position awarded to someone to recognize her or his achievements in poetry. One aspect of that recognition is to consider the poet's publications, books of poetry, or single poems published over the years. Becoming a published poet takes a certain amount of perseverance, dedication to the craft, a desire to share one's work as widely as publication permits, and a belief in the creative spirit that is at the heart of any artistic endeavor. Another aspect assesses the poet's way of bringing poetry to the community. And one way this happens is through the teaching of poetry, by means of workshops or classes. Teaching poetry is an activity that requires interaction with individuals, interaction that is friendly, kind, helpful, and non-judgmental. It also requires openness to the very individual ways that people choose to express themselves. A third aspect of recognition happens when a poet has the means and ability to read her or his work in public, to share the sound and sense of the specialized language that is poetry. Ideally, the spoken word helps us connect with one another. It inspires others to think, feel, and understand their own experience of life in a more intense and insightful way. It may help the hearer to find a way of bringing his or her own experience into the light that poetry provides. I applied to be the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate because I believe in poetry and what it can do in the same way that I believe in art, music, dance, and other forms of artistic expression. I believe poetry can save lives by doing the mysterious work of allowing a human being to say yes to life, to the intensity of love and sorrow, grief and joy, the pleasure of connection with others and with the natural world. I hope the poetry project I proposed can provide tools for self-expression. This project will involve people in creating digital poems that celebrate the natural world of the Pikes Peak region. Titled Tapping into Tava, the idea, Tava Kiev being our mountain out here, the idea is to work with poetry and technology in the same way that digital story projects work. In a series of workshops, poets would write a poem or poems about Tava Kiev, the Ute name for Pikes Peak, or about the environment around Tava. For example, about the Garden of the Gods, or Fountain Creek, or Manitou Lake, or the fossil beds near Florissant, or about the old mines and mining towns, or about the fauna and flora of the region. The poem should engage with the world out there in some way. Along with writing poetry, people will take photographs. These can be done with a digital or film camera or with a phone. The photos do not have to be professional quality, but some visuals of the area the poet attempts to capture in words should also be produced visually with a camera device. So that's the basic idea, and then we'll somehow work with computers. I know this can be a stretch for some people. Believe me, I went back to school in 2008 to get my library degree and found out it was nothing about books anymore. It was about technology. And so that wasn't exactly a rude awakening, but I know that I had to stretch a lot to learn those things. And I was in my 60s when that happened. So it can be done. And I'd be happy to talk with people after this about a little bit more about that project. I don't want to spend more time doing that, but I want to read a few poems. As Erin mentioned, I have some poems that are more formally structured. And so I'd like to read a series called Feather River Sonnets. There are about 10 poems. So I've sort of repurposed the sonnet, I guess, in the sense that it's actually become a kind of narrative. They are sonnets, but in a sequence, but telling a story. And for a little extra background, my tribal affiliation is Koyunkawi. And people will say, well, what is that? Konkau is the anglicized word for our tribe, and my tribe's from California, from the Sierra Nevada, up in the mountains. Feather River Sonnets 1. They lease a cabin where the river bends. The canyon's wider here, but steep just north, where summer clouds have billowed in. He tends a big garden on the floodplain. And 4th of July, we visit them, Mom's sister Lil and her husband Ivan, a 3-pack smoker, curmudgeon, a sour trickster with a stubby thumb from his lumberjack days. Lil sews, cooks, presses flowers, crochets Afghans, knits socks, cans fruit, and cleans. She carps about the stifling summer heat and says she lives too far away. But if I harp, he'll take me to Smorgies. She winks and nods. He soon comes in with carrots from their yard. 2. Sometimes a rattler slips into the grass and creeps along with raised head and flicking tongue. "Ivan, grab the dog and make it fast," Lil shouts. Our heavy uncle runs, ticking off the yards in seconds to scoop the pup, a chihuahua named Itty Bit, who snaps and growls because my uncle will not let up teasing him. But he adores that dog, wraps him in the crook of his arm, carries him everywhere. Ivan seizes a hoe to behead the snake, and if we tarry outside a moment, he will curse and throw a rock to herd us away. Ruffian of sorts, his words are gruff, his old face grim. 3. At the cabin, relative peace prevails. We hardly fight. No one yells, storms, or cries, or feels called upon to stretch the truth, lie or dissemble. Grades, who cares? No one fails, at least not much. We can dress like boys, no one disapproves. This willful ignorance is nice. We hike, fish, swim, run, kick the cans, our favorite game. We watch the river flow, pick gold poppies on the road, listen to the wind that blows each afternoon. Our mom seems merry away from home and dad, from worries about money, about him who does what dads do without family near. Funny things, perverse, all a little queer. 4. Our mom and aunt were born just down the road when muleback was the customary mode of transport. Goods came by a train, and a stagecoach ran from Inskip through red dust and sage and dry manzanita. Things smelled of sweat, leather, wool, coal, and smoke. People would get letters written in ink by pens with brass nibs. "Dearest mother," just a line to ask, "How are you doing? How are Cindy, Jacques, Leander?" Has Dad struck gold? Did the flock of ducks survive? Did your old cow give up the ghost? 50 years later, we feel ruptured from this past. Almost. Our mom and aunt in tandem laugh. Bring back those times? You can't. 5. Of course, the river's dammed up now, says Mom, and Jim Lee's pergola is gone. He tapped the soda springs for tourists and mapped a place for picnic lunches near our home. Folks came by train and walked the trail. There was no highway then. Jim kept a stone beneath his arm. The boys said, "If he throws that rock at your feet, you will die," frail and consumptive. We knew he had power, practiced Indian cures. Strange things went on. The spirit world was present. Now they're gone. Remember the ceremony, the flowers we picked when Mama died? She asks Aunt Lil, singing to that wild river. Neither smile. 6. The kids would never tell me what went on in Indian school. I know that it burned down is all. They came home scarred, hair full of lice. Dad cut it short and they used turpentine to kill the bugs. It stung their scalps. They cried, the girls did. "If you get that in your eyes, you'll go blind," they said. Mom waits a spell, then resumes. They built another grade school in Belden. The kids went there. They learned to read, write, do math. They never felt spurned by their classmates, and they liked their teacher. I was young, but I'd have walked 10 acres to go to that school. As little as I was, she cries, fiery determination in her eyes. 7. We hike up Yellow Creek to Grandpa's claim, an old abandoned mine, cabin with worn planks, dynamite beneath the iron frame of the bed. No gold now, only the torn face of the cliff, wind and cedar and pine, and the cold creek, numbingly cold and clear, breaking over rocks, splashing us with fine spray. Late in the afternoon, a mule deer comes down to drink from the glistening pool by the boulders. Skinny water snake glides past our legs, all brown speed and sleekness, fooling us. It's not a twig. Day's heat subsides, much like Grandpa's dream of fat, easy wealth. He died poor, a drunk, in consumptive health. 8. Aunt Lil will not admit that he was cruel when he drank. Our father would beat his sons till the blood ran down their backs. The only one he never hit was me. I was too small. Mom sighs. We're seated at the river's edge on a sandy bar in warm, bright sunshine. I glance at her face. The dark, furrowed line between her brows has deepened, a hard ledge of memory. The river splashes by. A tanager alights in the wind-whipped willows. It flits yellow feathers. We've dipped our hands in water, prayed. We ever try to appease what burns, what lacerates, the loss of trust, ferocious tears, old hates. 9. The boys all scattered when our mama died. The girls found work in the city, housemaids. Our dad shacked up with Annie Lee and stayed drunk. Sister Bertha never liked the lights and came back home to the mountains. She passed away young. Mom's tales fill my tender heart. West of us, Mount Ben Lomond stands, parts white, puffy thunderheads that mount up fast at canyon's rim. I know we Concow have lived here a long time, hunted and fished, told stories, had ceremonies, had wished to keep old ways and family ties, no doubt. But everything we loved, says Mom, seems gone. Earth and homestead, our tongue, our place, our songs. 10. Mom wakes us early. It's Monday, full moon in the canyon. Home to Berkeley, the bay, ocean fog. We'll have eggs, toast. Pretty soon we'll be on the road, silent and dismayed at having to leave this place. I hate goodbyes, but the canyon shimmers in light from the moon, and now that sad, longing ache begins to wane. Granite looks slick at night beneath the lunar glow. At 8, we're home, having sped down the Toon Lane Delta Road. I know the river's back there. Fine, red loam, serpentine and mica rocks, the sunny load of water, smell of sawmills, yellow pine, things I claim, though they never can be mine. Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to sing a couple songs for you. One is in Portuguese, from Brazil. It's just a little folk song from Brazil. It's called Biatata. And it's just a little love song about somebody from Brazil. From the part of Brazil called Alagoa. So I haven't, other than reading, I haven't really warmed up the voice. So we'll see what happens. Biatata, biatata, esse coco saboroso você come não me dá. Biatata, biatata, esse coco saboroso você come não me dá. Morena pura, morena pura. Morena, você vem da terra da lagoa, a terra boa, a terra quente, e terá tantas coisas que a gente fica contente. Biatata, biatata, esse coco saboroso você come não me dá. Biatata, biatata, esse coco saboroso você come não me dá. Aqui tem coisas que eu nunca vi. Morena terra tem sururu e sapoti. Aqui é bom, não é melhor. O Brasil é muito grande, mas aqui é tão melhor. Biatata, biatata, esse coco saboroso você come não me dá. Biatata, arrabbiata, esse coco sabroso você come, não me dá. It says, that tasty coconut, don't give it to me. That's what it says. Whatever that might mean. Okay, sorry, I have to figure out what key I'm singing this in. Okay, I think I got the key. This is an old folk song from Mexico called La Sandunga, and it's hard to. It might be a love song to the Sandunga, but I've also heard that this was a song to somebody would sing to their mother, and so I won't translate it first, but I'll just go ahead and sing. Antenoche fui a tu casa, 3 golpes le di al condado. Tú no sirves para amores, tienes el sueño pesado. Ay, Sandunga, Sandunga, mamá, por Dios, Sandunga, no seas ingrata, mamá de mi corazón. Me ofreciste acompañarme desde la iglesia mi choza, pero como no llegaste, tuve que venirme sola. Ay, Sandunga, Sandunga, mamá, por Dios, Sandunga, no seas ingrata, mamá de mi corazón. Orillas del Papaloapan me estaba bañando ayer. Pasaste por las orillas y no me quisiste ver. Ay, Sandunga, Sandunga, mamá, por Dios, Sandunga, no seas ingrata, mamá de mi corazón. Mosquito, no mortifiques con tus cantos malsonantes. Si me cantas, no me piques. Si me picas, no me cantes. Ay, Sandunga, Sandunga, mamá, por Dios, Sandunga, no seas ingrata, mamá de mi corazón, cielo de mi corazón, mamá de mi corazón.
Thank you and congratulations, Janice. Just a couple of concluding remarks. First of all, thank you again to the Pikes Peak Poet Laureate project presenting partners, the steering committee, the selection committee, all of you involved in planning and organizing today's events. Thank you also to our donors, and thanks for mentioning that earlier, Aaron. I want to also remind you, and I think Sue is bringing them in now, that as you leave, we do have copies of Poetry While You Wait. They're beautiful, there's lovely poetry in there, and they're a joy to read. That said, The goal of the project is, read it, leave a copy in a public place so that others will enjoy those poems as well. So we ask that you do that. And here are my parting words for you today. First, 2 personal facts. Some of you already know that I love and write poetry. That's a personal fact. So probably most of you here know that. I don't have much time to do it, but I love when I do. Secondly, I come from a family of tattoos, or people with tattoos. So in a family of 5 sisters and 3 sisters-in-law, everyone has a tattoo except me. Every time I go home, they say, all right, come on, Bella, let's go get a tattoo. Or, have you thought about what do you want as your tattoo? So I don't have one yet, but I have thought about what I would want. And here's what it is. It would be like a little text box and very fine print. And in it, it would say, beneath this skin, a poet's soul within. So, I want to thank all of you for being here today and for bringing and showing your poet's soul today. You also have permission, if your family cajoles you into getting a tattoo, feel free to do that. We'll start a club. Thank you again for being here today.